Welcome to this course on prompt engineering, and I'm genuinely excited to have you here. Whether you're completely new to AI or you've been experimenting with tools like ChatGPT or other chatbots, this course is designed to transform the way you work with artificial intelligence. Think about it for a moment. We're living in a time where AI can write emails, analyze data, solve complex problems, and even help us be more creative. But here's the catch. Most people are only scratching the surface of what these tools can do. They type in a quick question, get an okay answer, and move on. But what if I told you that with the right approach, you could get answers that are much better, more accurate, and perfectly suited to your needs? That's exactly what this course is about. We're going to start from the very beginning, making sure everyone understands what generative AI really is and how these large language models actually work. Then we'll dive into practical techniques that you can use immediately in your daily work. We'll explore everything from writing better emails and summarizing documents to advanced strategies that even experienced AI users might not know about. But here's what makes this course different. We're not just going to teach you a bunch of tricks that might become outdated next year. By the end of this journey, you'll understand the fundamental principles of how to think clearly, ask better questions, and truly collaborate with AI as a powerful tool. You'll learn how to get consistent results, how to make AI understand exactly what you want, and how to save hours of time every single week. So stick with me through all the modules. Each section builds on the previous one, and I promise you the investment of your time will pay off in ways you might not even expect right now. Before we start, I would like to emphasize that if you have questions about any of course's contents or AI in general, feel free to write it down in the comments section of the video, and it will be usually replied within 24 hours. Let's get started and unlock the full potential of AI together. Chapter 1. The Basics. In this chapter, you will learn: what is generative AI? Understanding the basic mechanism of large language models. Understand what is prompting. Why prompting critical when using generative AI tools. Let's start at the very beginning and talk about what generative AI actually is. You've probably heard this term thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? Well, imagine you have a super smart assistant that can create new things for you. It can write stories, answer questions, generate images, compose music, or even write computer code. That's generative AI. The word generative simply means it generates or creates new content. It's not just copying and pasting things it has seen before. It's actually producing original responses based on what you ask it. Now, the most popular form of generative AI right now is something called a large language model, or LLM for short. These are AI systems that work specifically with text and language. Think of ChatGPT, Claude, or Google's Gemini. These are all examples of large language models. So how do these LLMs actually work? Let me explain this in the simplest way possible. Imagine you're reading a sentence that says, "The cat sat on the blank." Your brain can easily predict that the next word is probably mat or chair or something similar, right? That's basically what an LLM does, but at a massive scale. These models have been trained on enormous amounts of text from books, websites, articles, and all kinds of written content from the internet. During this training process, the model learned patterns in language. It learned which words usually come after other words, how sentences are structured, what makes sense in different contexts, and even things like tone and style. When you type a question or request, the model doesn't actually understand it the way humans do. Instead, it's using all those patterns it learned to predict what the best response would be, word by word, token by token. A token, by the way, is just a piece of a word that the model works with. Sometimes a token is a whole word, sometimes it's just part of a word. Now let's talk about prompting, because this is absolutely crucial to getting good results from AI. A prompt is simply the instruction or question you give to the AI. It's your input. Think of it like this. If the AI is a chef, the prompt is your order at a restaurant. You could walk into a restaurant and just say food, and you'll probably get something, but it might not be what you wanted. Or you could say, I'd like a medium rare steak with garlic mashed potatoes and steamed vegetables, and please go light on the salt. Which order do you think will get you a better meal? The same principle applies to AI. The way you phrase your prompt, the details you include, and the structure you use all dramatically affect the quality of the response you get. This brings us to why prompting is so critical when using generative AI tools. Here's the thing. The AI has incredible potential and knowledge, but it needs clear direction from you. Without good prompting, you might get responses that are too vague, too long, off-topic, or just not useful. But with good prompting, you can get responses that are precise, relevant, creative, and incredibly valuable. Let me give you a real example. Imagine you need help writing an email to a client. If you just type, "write an email," the AI might give you something generic that doesn't fit your situation at all. But if you say, "write a professional email to a client apologizing for a delayed shipment, explaining that our supplier had unexpected issues, and offering a 10% discount on their next order as compensation," keep the tone friendly but professional. Now you're going to get something much more useful. The difference between these two prompts is night and day, and that's exactly what we're going to explore in this course. Good prompting is like having a conversation with a very smart but very literal friend. You need to be clear about what you want, provide enough context so they understand the situation, and sometimes give examples of what you're looking for. When you master these skills, AI transforms from a tool that gives you okay results into a powerful assistant that can genuinely enhance your productivity and creativity. Throughout this course, we're going to build your skills step by step, starting with these fundamentals and moving all the way to advanced techniques that will make you an expert at getting exactly what you need from AI. Let's move to Chapter 2, Prompt Engineering and Large Language Model Interaction. This chapter focuses on the art and science of interacting with LLMs effectively, covering the most essential foundational techniques. We will dive into the multi-step prompting framework. 1. The main task, clearly defining the desired action. 2. Context, providing background information and data. 3. References, examples, using examples and references to guide output format and style. 4. Evaluate, assessing the quality and accuracy of the output. 5. Iteration, refining and adjusting the prompt. Now that you understand what generative AI is and why prompting matters, let's dive into the practical side of things. Let me break down each one so you can see exactly how to use them. The first step is task, and this is all about clearly defining what you want the AI to do. This sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how many people skip this or are too vague about it. The task is the action you want completed. It's the verb, the doing part of your prompt. Are you asking the AI to write something, summarize something, analyze something, generate ideas, translate, explain, compare, or create a plan? You need to be specific and direct about this. For example, instead of saying, "I need help with marketing," which is incredibly vague, you would say, "Write 3 social media posts promoting our new yoga class." See the difference? The second version has a clear task. It tells the AI exactly what action to take. Or imagine you're working with a long report. Instead of saying, "Do something with this report," you would say, "Summarize the key findings from this quarterly sales report in 5 bullet points." The task is crystal clear. The AI knows exactly what action to perform. When you're defining your task, use clear action verbs and be as specific as possible about what the end result should look like. If you want something written, say, "write." If you want analysis, say, "analyze." If you want a comparison, say, "compare." Don't make the AI guess what you're asking for. The second step is context, and this is where many people miss huge opportunities to get better results. Context is all the background information that helps the AI understand your situation and tailor its response appropriately. Think about when you ask a friend for advice. You don't just say, "What should I do?" without any explanation, right? You tell them the whole story, the background, what's been happening, who's involved, and what constraints you're facing. The same principle applies with AI. The more relevant context you provide, the better the AI can customize its response to your specific needs. Let me give you an example. Imagine you want help writing a proposal. A prompt without context might be, "Write a project proposal." That's just a task with no context, and the AI will give you something generic that probably won't fit your needs. But a prompt with good context would be, "Write a project proposal for implementing a new customer relationship management system at our company. We're a medium-sized manufacturing business with about 200 employees. Our current system is outdated and causing inefficiencies in our sales process. The proposal is for our executive team who care most about return on investment and minimal disruption to daily operations." Now look at all the context you've provided. You've told the AI what kind of proposal, for what purpose, what industry you're in, how big your company is, what problem you're solving, and who the audience is. With all this context, the AI can write something much more relevant and useful. Context can include things like your role or industry, your audience, the purpose or goal, any constraints like budget or time, the tone you need, relevant background information, and any specific requirements or preferences you have. The key is to think about what information would help someone understand your situation better, and include that in your prompt. The third step is references or examples, and this is an incredibly powerful technique. This is where you show the AI what kind of output you're looking for by providing examples. There are two main approaches here, and they have specific names in the AI world. The first is called zero-shot prompting, which means you give the AI a task without any examples and just rely on clear instructions. The second is called few-shot prompting, which means you provide one or more examples of what you want. Let me show you the difference. Imagine you want the AI to categorize customer feedback. With zero-shot prompting, you might say, "Categorize this customer feedback into positive, negative, or neutral." That can work, but the AI might interpret those categories differently than you intend. With few-shot prompting, you would say, "Categorize this customer feedback into positive, negative, or neutral." Here are some examples. Example 1. The product arrived quickly and works perfectly. Category: positive. Example 2. The item was damaged and customer service was unhelpful. Category: negative. Example 3. The product is okay, nothing special. Category: neutral. Now categorize this feedback. By providing examples, you've shown the AI exactly how you want it to categorize things, what level of positivity or negativity qualifies for each category, and the format you want for the output. This dramatically improves consistency and accuracy. Examples are especially useful when you want a specific format, style, or tone. If you want emails written in a particular way, show the AI an example of an email you like. If you want data formatted in a specific structure, show an example of that structure. The AI is very good at pattern matching, so when you give it examples, it can follow that pattern for new content. You don't always need examples, especially for simple tasks, but for anything where you have a specific vision or format in mind, examples are your best friend. The fourth step is evaluate, and this is where you assess the quality and accuracy of what the AI produced. This step is critical because AI, while impressive, is not perfect. It can make mistakes, include irrelevant information, miss important points, or not quite match what you were looking for. After you get a response from the AI, take a moment to really look at it critically. Ask yourself some questions. Does this actually answer what I asked for? Is the information accurate? Is the tone and style appropriate? Is anything missing that should be included? Is there anything included that shouldn't be there? Does it make logical sense? Is it well organized? For example, if you ask the AI to write a product description, and it comes back with something that's technically well written but does not mention the key features that make your product special, that's a problem you've identified in the evaluation step. Or if you asked for a summary of a technical document and the AI used jargon that your audience won't understand, you've spotted an issue. The evaluation step is not about being overly critical or expecting perfection on the first try. It's about being thoughtful and identifying what's working and what needs improvement. This naturally leads us to the final step. The fifth step is iterate, and this is where the magic really happens. Iteration means refining and adjusting your prompt based on what you learned in the evaluation step. Very rarely will you get absolutely perfect results on your first try, and that's completely normal and expected. The key is to not give up or think the AI isn't useful. Instead, you iterate. You go back and improve your prompt based on what you learned. Maybe you need to add more context, provide an example, be more specific about the format, adjust the tone, add constraints, or clarify the task. Let me walk you through a real iteration process so you can see how this works. Let's say your first prompt is, write a blog post about productivity tips. You get back a response, and when you evaluate it, you realize it's too general and doesn't match your audience. So you iterate with a second prompt. Write a blog post about productivity tips for remote workers who struggle with work-life balance. Keep it conversational and around 800 words. That's better, but when you evaluate this version, you notice it doesn't include any specific tools or techniques. So you iterate again with a third prompt. Write a blog post about productivity tips for remote workers who struggle with work-life balance. Include specific techniques like time blocking and the Pomodoro method, and recommend tools like Notion and Todoist. Keep it conversational and around 800 words with an engaging introduction that relates to the reader's struggles. Now you're getting somewhere really good. Each iteration got you closer to what you actually wanted. This is how professionals use AI. They don't expect perfection immediately. They have a conversation with the AI, iterating and refining until they get exactly what they need. The beautiful thing about this 5-step framework is that it works for virtually any task you want to accomplish with AI. Whether you're writing, analyzing, brainstorming, coding, or anything else, you can apply these same 5 steps. Define your task clearly. Provide relevant context, use examples when helpful, evaluate what you get back, and iterate to improve it. As you practice this framework, it will become second nature. You'll start automatically thinking about what context is relevant, what examples might help, and how to refine your prompts. This systematic approach takes you from someone who occasionally gets lucky with AI to someone who consistently gets high-quality, useful results. In the next sections, we'll build on this framework with more advanced techniques, but this 5-step approach will always be your foundation. Master this, and you're well on your way to becoming truly effective at working with AI. Now, let's move to something more advanced. Chapter 3. Model Settings. To maximize prompt effectiveness, you need to understand and adjust the model's settings. The output length. This sets the maximum number of tokens an LLM can output. Setting it too short will not make the answer more succinct. It will just cut off the response when the limit is reached. Temperature. This is the most important control for randomness. Higher temperature. For example, 1. Results in more creative and unique responses, making the output less consistent. Lower temperature. For example, 0. Results in more consistent, less creative, and more factual responses. Top K. Selects the top K most likely tokens for the next word. A higher value leads to more varied output. Top P. Limits the vocabulary set based on a cumulative probability threshold. Now, we need to talk about something that many people overlook, but that can dramatically change the results you get from AI. These are called model settings or parameters, and they're like the control knobs on a machine that let you fine-tune how the AI behaves. Understanding these settings will give you much more control over the quality and style of responses you receive. Think of it this way. The prompts you write are like telling someone what to cook, but the model settings are like adjusting the temperature on the oven or how long to cook it. Both matter if you want great results. The main settings you need to understand are output length, temperature, top K, and top P. Let me explain each one so you know exactly what they do and when to adjust them. Let's start with output length, which is sometimes called max tokens or maximum length. This setting controls the maximum number of tokens the AI is allowed to generate in its response. Remember from our first chapter that tokens are pieces of words that the model works with. As a rough guide, about 4 characters equals 1 token, or you can think of it as roughly 75 words per 100 tokens. Now, here's a critical misconception that many people have. They think that if they set a low output length, the AI will give them a more concise, better summarized answer. That's not how it works at all. Setting the output length doesn't make the AI more succinct or better at summarizing. All it does is cut off the response when that limit is reached, even if the AI is in the middle of a sentence or hasn't finished explaining something important. Let me give you an example to make this clear. Imagine you ask the AI to explain how photosynthesis works, and you set the output length to 50 tokens, which is very short. The AI might start explaining and say, photosynthesis is the process by which plants convert sunlight into energy. It takes place in the chloroplasts of plant cells where chlorophyll absorbs light. The process involves 2 main stages, and then it just stops abruptly because it hit the 50-token limit. That's not a summary. That's just an incomplete answer. If you want a concise answer, you need to ask for that in your prompt by saying something like, explain photosynthesis in 3 short sentences, or give me a brief overview of photosynthesis in under 100 words. That way, the AI will intentionally create a concise response, rather than just getting cut off. So, when should you adjust output length? Generally, you want to set it high enough that the AI has room to complete its answer fully. If you're asking for something short like a social media post, maybe 500 tokens is plenty. If you're asking for a detailed analysis or a long article, you might want to set it to 2,000 or even 4,000 tokens depending on what the tool allows. The key is to give the AI enough room to finish what you asked for without getting cut off. Now, let's talk about temperature. And this is by far the most important setting for controlling the creative behavior of the AI. Temperature controls randomness or creativity in the AI's responses. It's measured on a scale, typically from 0 to 1 or sometimes 0 to 2, depending on which AI tool you're using. Understanding temperature is crucial because it can completely change the character of the responses you get. Let me explain how it works. When the AI is generating text, it's constantly predicting what token should come next. At each step, it calculates probabilities for many possible next tokens. Some tokens are very likely based on the patterns it learned, and some are less likely. Temperature affects how the AI chooses from among these possibilities. A lower temperature, like 0 or close to 0, makes the AI more deterministic and focused. It will almost always choose the most likely next token, the one with the highest probability. This results in responses that are more consistent, more predictable, more factual, and less creative. If you ask the same question 10 times with a temperature of 0, you'll get very similar answers each time, sometimes even identical. This is great when you want reliability and accuracy. For example, if you're asking the AI to solve a math problem, explain a scientific concept, write technical documentation, or extract specific information from a document, you want a low temperature. You don't want creativity or variation in those cases. You want the correct, most straightforward answer. On the other hand, a higher temperature, like 1.0 or even higher, makes the AI more random and creative. It starts considering tokens that have lower probabilities, not just the most obvious choices. This results in responses that are more varied, more unique, more creative, and less predictable. If you ask the same question 10 times with a high temperature, you'll get 10 different answers that might take different approaches or use different styles. This is wonderful when you want creativity and originality. For example, if you're brainstorming marketing slogans, writing creative stories, generating unique product names, or exploring different ways to solve a problem, a higher temperature is your friend. The responses will be more interesting and unexpected. However, there's a trade-off. With higher temperature comes a greater risk of the AI producing responses that are less coherent, less accurate, or that might go off topic. It's like the difference between a very precise, careful speaker and a more free-spirited, improvisational speaker. Both have their place depending on what you need. Let me give you a concrete example of how temperature affects output. Imagine you prompt the AI to complete this sentence. The best way to stay healthy is. With a temperature of 0, the AI might respond with something like, to eat a balanced diet, exercise regularly, get enough sleep, and manage stress effectively. That's straightforward and predictable. If you asked again, you'd likely get almost the same answer. Now imagine you use a temperature of 1.0 or higher for the same prompt. You might get, to listen to your body's signals and find joy in movement that makes you feel alive. That's more creative and less conventional. Ask again, and you might get something completely different like, to build strong relationships with people who energize you and to never underestimate the power of laughter. See how the higher temperature produces more varied and creative responses? Neither approach is wrong. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve. For most everyday tasks like writing emails, summarizing documents, or getting straightforward information, a medium to low temperature works well. Many AI tools default to something like 0.7, which is a nice balance. But when you want the AI to think outside the box or give you fresh ideas, turning up that temperature can produce really interesting results. Now, let's briefly discuss Top K and Top P, which are two other settings you might see in some AI tools. I'm going to be honest with you here. Most people, including many professionals who use AI regularly, rarely adjust these settings because temperature usually does what you need. But it's still worth understanding what they do in case you want to experiment. Top K is a setting that limits the AI to choosing from only the top K most likely tokens at each step. The K here just represents a number. So if you set top K to 50, the AI will only consider the 50 most probable next tokens and ignore everything else. A higher top K value means the AI has more options to choose from, which can lead to more varied output. A lower top K value restricts the choices, making output more focused and predictable. It's another way to control creativity, somewhat similar to temperature but working through a different mechanism. Top P, which is sometimes called nucleus sampling, works a bit differently. Instead of selecting a fixed number of top tokens, it selects tokens based on a cumulative probability threshold. Let me explain that in simpler terms. The AI looks at all possible next tokens and their probabilities, then it adds up those probabilities starting from the most likely token, and it keeps adding until it reaches the top P threshold. So if you set top P to 0.9, the AI will consider only the tokens that together make up 90% of the probability mass. This means the AI focuses on the most likely options while still allowing some variation. A lower top P value, like 0.5, makes the output more focused and deterministic. A higher top P value, like 0.95, allows for more diversity. Again, this is another way to control the randomness and creativity of the output. Here's the practical advice I want you to take away from this. For most of your work with AI, focus on adjusting the temperature setting. That's your primary control for balancing between consistency and creativity. Set it low, around 0 to 0.3, when you need accuracy and reliability. Set it medium, around 0.5 to 0.7, for balanced everyday tasks. Set it high, around 0.8 to 1.0 or even higher when you want maximum creativity and variety. As for top K and top P, you can usually leave them at their default settings and you'll be fine. If you're curious and want to experiment, go ahead, but don't feel like you need to master these to get great results from AI. The combination of good prompting techniques, which we covered in the previous chapter, and smart use of temperature will get you 95% of the way to excellent results. One more important thing to understand is that these settings work together with your prompts. You can't just crank up the temperature and expect magic to happen if your prompt is vague and unclear. Similarly, the best prompt in the world might not give you what you want if your settings are working against you. Think of it as a partnership. Your prompt tells the AI what to do and provides the context and examples. The settings tell the AI how to behave while doing it. When you align both your prompt and your settings with your goal, that's when you get truly outstanding results. Now, let's move into something more practical. Chapter 4. Designing Practical Prompts. This module shifts focus to practical, immediate applications of prompting for productivity in the workplace. Content creation, such as drafting and editing professional communications like emails, reports, meeting agendas, and applying prompting strategies to adjust tone, style, and formality. Information management, to efficiently summarizing lengthy documents or articles. Techniques for brainstorming and generating creative ideas quickly and prompting to create structured outputs like tables, trackers, or timelines. Leveraging long context windows. Understanding how to provide extended background information for complex tasks. Now that you understand the fundamentals of prompting and how to adjust model settings, it's time to get really practical. In this chapter, we're going to focus on real-world applications that you can use immediately in your daily work to save time and boost your productivity. These are the kinds of tasks that most professionals deal with every single day, and AI can make them dramatically easier and faster. Let's start with content creation, because this is probably the most common use case for AI in the workplace. Every day, professionals like you need to draft emails, write reports, create meeting agendas, prepare presentations, and produce all kinds of written communication. These tasks can be time-consuming, and sometimes you just stare at a blank page not knowing how to start. This is where AI becomes incredibly valuable. Let me walk you through some specific scenarios and show you how to use prompting strategies to get exactly what you need. Imagine you need to write an email to your team about an upcoming deadline. Instead of struggling with how to phrase things, you could prompt the AI like this. Write an email to my team reminding them that the project proposal is due next Friday. The tone should be encouraging but firm. Mention that I'm available for questions and that we should schedule a final review meeting on Thursday. Keep it under 150 words and make it sound friendly. Notice how this prompt includes everything we learned in the 5-step framework. You've defined the task, which is writing an email. You've provided context about what the email is about and who it's for. You've specified the tone you want, which is encouraging but firm. You've included specific details that need to be mentioned. And you've set constraints on length and style. With a prompt like this, the AI will give you a solid draft that you might only need to personalize slightly with specific names or details. Now let's talk about adjusting tone, style, and formality, because this is a crucial skill that many people underestimate. The same basic message can be communicated in very different ways depending on your audience and context. AI is excellent at adapting its writing style when you give it clear direction. Let me give you an example to show you what I mean. Imagine you need to communicate the same information to 3 different audiences. First, you need to tell your executive team that a project is delayed. Second, you need to tell the project team the same news. And third, you need to tell the client. The core information is the same, but the tone and approach should be very different for each audience. For the executive team, you might prompt the AI with something like, Write a brief, professional update for executives explaining that the website redesign project will be delayed by 2 weeks due to unexpected technical challenges. Focus on the solution and next steps. Keep it concise and confident. That will give you something formal and solution-oriented. For your project team, you might prompt "Write an update for the project team explaining that we're facing a 2-week delay due to technical challenges with the back-end integration." The tone should be honest and supportive, acknowledging their hard work and asking for their continued collaboration. That will give you something more personal and team-focused. For the client, you might prompt "Write a professional email to a client explaining that their website redesign will be delayed by 2 weeks. Apologize sincerely. Explain that we discovered optimization issues that need attention to ensure quality, emphasize our commitment to excellence, and offer a small discount or bonus feature as compensation. Keep it warm and reassuring. Each of these prompts will produce content that delivers the same basic information, but in a way that's appropriate for each specific audience. You can also use AI to help you edit and improve content you've already written. Maybe you've drafted an email, but it feels too harsh, or maybe a report sounds too casual, and you need to make it more professional. You can simply paste your existing content into the AI and say something like, "Rewrite this email in a more diplomatic and friendly tone," or "Make this report sound more professional and formal while keeping all the same information." This editing capability is incredibly powerful because it means you don't have to be perfect on your first draft. You can get your ideas down and then use AI to polish and refine them. Think of AI as your writing assistant who can help you find the right words and strike the right tone for any situation. Now, let's move on to information management, which is another area where AI can save you enormous amounts of time. In today's world, we're constantly drowning in information. Long reports, articles, research papers, meeting transcripts, email threads, and documents of all kinds. Reading through all of this material thoroughly can take hours or even days. This is where AI's ability to summarize becomes incredibly valuable. AI can read through lengthy documents and extract the key points in seconds, giving you the essential information without having to read every word. Let me show you how to use this effectively. The key to getting good summaries is being specific about what you want. Don't just say, "Summarize this document," because that's too vague. Instead, tell the AI what kind of summary you need and what level of detail. For example, you might say, "Read this 20-page market research report and give me a summary of the 3 main findings and the key recommendations. Keep the summary to about 200 words. Or you might say, "Summarize this meeting transcript and tell me what decisions were made, what action items were assigned, and what topics need follow-up." Format it as a clear list. The more specific you are about what information matters to you and how you want it presented, the better your summary will be. Here's a really practical tip that can change how you work with information. You can ask AI to summarize with a specific focus or lens. For instance, if you're reading a long industry report and you only care about information relevant to your company's strategy, you could say, "Read this report and summarize only the parts that are relevant to a company in the e-commerce retail space looking to expand internationally." The AI will filter the information through that lens and give you a targeted summary. Or, if you're reviewing customer feedback and want to know about specific issues, you could say, "Go through these customer reviews and summarize the main complaints about shipping and delivery times." This focused summarization is incredibly powerful because it saves you from having to read everything and mentally filter it yourself. AI is also excellent for brainstorming and generating creative ideas quickly. We all have moments when we need fresh ideas, but our mind feels stuck. Maybe you need new marketing campaign ideas, creative solutions to a business problem, different approaches to a project, or even just a catchy title for a presentation. AI can help jumpstart your creative thinking. The key is to prompt it in a way that encourages diverse and creative responses. Instead of asking, Give me an idea for a marketing campaign. Try something like, I need to promote our new line of eco-friendly office supplies to small businesses. Brainstorm 10 creative marketing campaign ideas that emphasize sustainability and cost savings. Think outside the box and include both digital and offline approaches. Notice how this prompt gives clear context, asks for a specific quantity of ideas, mentions the key themes you want emphasized, and encourages creativity. You'll get a variety of ideas that you can evaluate and build upon. Even if none of the ideas are perfect as is, they'll likely spark your own thinking and lead you to solutions you might not have considered otherwise. Another incredibly useful application is prompting AI to create structured outputs like tables, trackers, or timelines. Sometimes you need to organize information in a visual or structured way, and AI can help you create these frameworks quickly. For example, imagine you're planning a project and need to create a timeline. You could prompt the AI with, "Create a project timeline for launching a new product." The project starts in January and the launch is in June. Include phases for research, development, testing, marketing preparation, and launch. Format it as a table with columns for phase, duration, key activities, and responsible team. The AI will generate a structured table that you can use as a starting point and then customize with your specific details. Or maybe you need to track multiple things and want a template. You could say, create a weekly content tracker for social media with columns for date, platform, content type, topic, status, and engagement metrics. Include rows for Monday through Friday. Within seconds, you have a useful framework that would have taken you much longer to create from scratch. Now, let's talk about something that has become increasingly important with modern AI tools, and that's leveraging long context windows. A context window is the amount of information the AI can consider at once. In the early days of AI, the context window was quite limited, maybe just a few thousand words. But modern AI models have dramatically larger context windows. Some can handle hundreds of thousands of words, or even entire books at once. This opens up powerful possibilities for complex tasks. What this means practically is that you can give the AI extensive background information, multiple documents, long conversation histories, or detailed specifications, and it will consider all of that information when generating its response. This is particularly valuable for complex tasks that require lots of context. Let me give you some examples of how to use this capability. Imagine you're working on a business proposal and you have several related documents. Last year's proposal, feedback from stakeholders, research data, and competitor analysis. Instead of trying to synthesize all of this yourself or giving the AI just pieces of it, you can provide all of these documents to the AI at once and say, I've provided you with last year's proposal, stakeholder feedback, our research findings, and competitor analysis. Using all of this information, draft a new proposal that addresses the feedback, incorporates the research insights, and positions us competitively. Focus on our unique value proposition and include specific metrics from the research. The AI can consider all of this context simultaneously and produce something much more sophisticated than if you had only given it partial information. Another powerful use of long context windows is for maintaining consistency across large projects. If you're writing a long report or a series of related documents, you can feed the AI everything you've written so far and ask it to continue in the same style and with the same terminology. You might say, here are the first 3 chapters of my training manual. Write Chapter 4 on advanced troubleshooting techniques. Match the tone, style, and level of detail from the previous chapters, and maintain consistency with the terminology we've been using. The AI can analyze all that prior content and produce new content that fits seamlessly with what you've already created. This is incredibly valuable for maintaining quality and consistency in large writing projects. The key to using long context windows effectively is to be organized and clear about what you're providing. When you're giving the AI multiple pieces of information, it helps to label them clearly. You might structure your prompt like, "Here are 3 documents for your reference. Document 1 is our product specifications. Document 2 is customer feedback. Document 3 is competitor pricing. Based on all 3 documents, recommend a pricing strategy for our new product that is competitive but reflects our premium features." This clear labeling helps the AI understand how the different pieces of information relate to each other and to your request. All of these practical applications, from content creation to information management to leveraging long context, share a common thread. They're all about using AI as a collaborator and assistant to handle the time-consuming parts of knowledge work so you can focus on the higher-level thinking, decision-making, and creativity that only humans can provide. The goal isn't to have AI do everything for you. The goal is to use AI strategically for the tasks where it can save you time and mental energy, freeing you up to focus on what matters most. As you start applying these techniques in your daily work, you'll discover your own favorite use cases and develop your own prompting patterns that work well for your specific needs. The important thing is to start experimenting and incorporating these tools into your regular workflow. Start small with simple tasks like drafting an email or summarizing an article, and as you get comfortable, expand to more complex applications. Before long, you'll wonder how you ever managed without these AI-assisted techniques. Let's move into something revolutionary. Chapter 5. Prompt Engineering Tools. Assessing and using tools for prompt management and optimization. Now that you understand the fundamentals of prompting and how to apply them to practical tasks, let's talk about something that can take your workflow to the next level. Prompt engineering tools. As AI becomes more integrated into professional work, a whole ecosystem of specialized tools has emerged to help people manage, test, and optimize their prompts. In this chapter, we're going to explore what these tools are, when they're useful, and how to assess whether you should be using them. I want to be very clear from the start about something important. These tools are enhancers, not replacements for understanding. The best prompt engineering tool in the world won't help you if you don't understand the fundamental principles we've been covering in this course. But once you do understand those principles, the right tools can significantly amplify your effectiveness, especially if you're using AI frequently or for business-critical tasks. Let's start by understanding what prompt engineering tools actually are and what problems they solve. Think about your current workflow with AI. You probably open up a chat interface, type a prompt, get a response, maybe refine it a few times, and then move on. That works fine for occasional use. But what happens when you start using AI dozens of times per day? What happens when you discover a really effective prompt that you want to use again next week, but you can't remember exactly how you phrased it? What happens when you're working on a team and everyone is reinventing the wheel, creating their own prompts for the same tasks? What happens when you want to test whether changing one word in your prompt actually makes the output better? These are the problems that prompt engineering tools are designed to solve. They help you save, organize, reuse, test, and optimize your prompts so you don't have to start from scratch every time. The first category of tools we should discuss is prompt libraries and repositories. These are collections of effective prompts that have been created and shared by other users. Some are public and free, where anyone can browse and use prompts that others have found effective. Others are private, where you or your organization can build your own library of prompts. The value of a prompt library is that you don't have to figure everything out yourself. If someone has already created an excellent prompt for a task similar to yours, you can use it as a starting point and adapt it to your specific needs. Let me give you an example of how this works in practice. Imagine you need to create a prompt for analyzing customer feedback and categorizing it by sentiment and topic. You could spend an hour experimenting and refining your approach, or you could go to a prompt library search for customer feedback analysis. Find a prompt that someone else has already tested and refined, and then customize it with your specific categories and requirements. You've just saved yourself significant time and benefited from someone else's trial and error. When assessing prompt libraries, look for a few key features. First, can you easily search and filter to find relevant prompts? A library with thousands of prompts is only useful if you can quickly find what you need. Second, do the prompts include context about when and how to use them? A prompt without explanation is less valuable than one that tells you what it's good for and what settings work best with it. Third, can you save your own modified versions? You want to be able to take a prompt, adapt it, and save your version for future use. And fourth, is there a rating or feedback system? Prompts that have been tested and rated by many users are generally more reliable than untested ones. The second category of tools is what I call prompt playgrounds or testing environments. These are interfaces that allow you to experiment with prompts in a more systematic way than just using a standard chat interface. The key feature of a playground is that it typically allows you to test the same prompt with different model settings side by side, compare outputs from multiple prompt variations simultaneously, and see how small changes in your prompt affect the results. This is incredibly valuable when you're trying to optimize a prompt for a specific task. Let me paint a picture of how you might use a playground. Imagine you've created a prompt for writing product descriptions, and you want to know whether it works better with a temperature of 0.5 or 0.8. In a standard chat interface, you'd have to run the prompt once, note the result, change the setting, run it again, and try to remember what the first version looked like so you can compare. In a playground, you can set up two versions side by side, run them both at once, and see the outputs right next to each other for easy comparison. Or maybe you're not sure whether to include a certain piece of context in your prompt. You can create two versions, one with that context and one without, and test them both with the same input to see which produces better results. This systematic testing approach helps you refine your prompts based on actual evidence rather than guesswork. When evaluating prompt playgrounds, consider these factors. Does it support the AI models you're actually using? Some playgrounds work with multiple AI providers, while others are specific to one platform. Can you save your test configurations so you can return to them later? You don't want to have to set up your comparison tests from scratch every time. Does it provide any metrics or analysis of the outputs? Some advanced playgrounds can even compare outputs on dimensions like length, readability, or specific quality criteria. And importantly, is it easy to use, or does it have such a steep learning curve that it's more trouble than it's worth? The best tool is the one you'll actually use consistently. The third category is prompt management systems, which are more comprehensive platforms designed for teams or power users who work with AI extensively. These systems combine elements of libraries, playgrounds, and workflow tools. They allow you to create, store, organize, version, and share prompts across a team or organization. Think of it like a content management system, but for prompts instead of articles or images. The value proposition here is primarily for organizations where multiple people are using AI for similar tasks, and you want consistency, quality control, and collaboration. Let me explain with a workplace scenario. Imagine you work in a marketing department where 10 people are all using AI to help write social media posts, email campaigns, and ad copy. Without a management system, each person is probably creating their own prompts, and the quality and style of outputs varies wildly depending on who's doing the work. With a prompt management system, your team could create a set of approved, tested prompts for each type of content. Everyone uses the same base prompts, which means more consistency in your brand voice and quality. When someone discovers an improvement to a prompt, they can update the shared version and everyone benefits. You can also implement approval workflows where new prompts or major changes need to be reviewed before everyone starts using them. And you can track which prompts are being used most often, which ones produce the best results, and where your team might need more training or better prompts. When assessing prompt management systems, especially for organizational use, look at several key capabilities. Does it support collaboration features like sharing, commenting, and version control? Can you organize prompts into categories, folders, or tags so they're easy to find? Does it integrate with your existing tools and workflows? For example, can prompts be accessed directly from the applications your team uses daily? Does it provide usage analytics so you can understand how prompts are being used and which ones are most valuable? Does it support role-based access control if you need some prompts to be restricted to certain team members? And critically, what's the learning curve and what's the cost? A system that's too complex or expensive might not be worth it even if it has great features. There's also a growing category of AI-powered prompt optimization tools. These are tools that use AI itself to help you improve your prompts. The concept is fascinating. You provide your initial prompt and explain what you're trying to achieve, and the tool suggests ways to make your prompt more effective. It might recommend adding more context, restructuring your instructions, using different phrasing, or adjusting your constraints. Some of these tools can even automatically test multiple variations of your prompt and tell you which one performs best based on certain criteria. This is meta-level AI use, using AI to help you work better with AI. However, I want to offer a word of caution here. These tools can be helpful, but they're not magic. They work based on general principles of what makes prompts effective, but they don't know your specific context, needs, or goals as well as you do. Use them as sources of ideas and suggestions, not as authorities that you follow blindly. The best prompt optimizer is still your own critical thinking combined with testing and iteration. Now, let's talk about how to actually assess whether you should be using these tools, and if so, which ones. The decision framework should start with understanding your usage patterns and needs. If you're only using AI occasionally for simple tasks, you probably don't need specialized tools. Just getting good at crafting prompts manually is sufficient. The built-in features of whatever AI platform you're using, like ChatGPT or Claude, are probably adequate. But if you find yourself using AI daily for work, repeatedly doing similar tasks, or needing consistent quality across multiple uses, then tools start to make sense. Ask yourself these questions. Do I find myself trying to remember how I phrased something that worked well last week? That suggests you need a way to save and organize prompts. Am I spending a lot of time testing different variations to see what works best? That suggests a playground environment could help you be more efficient. Am I working on a team where we are all using AI for similar purposes but getting inconsistent results? That suggests a management system could create valuable standardization. Are my AI tasks business critical where mistakes or low-quality outputs have real consequences? That suggests the investment in optimization tools might pay off. Cost is obviously a factor to consider. Many basic prompt libraries and simple organizational tools are free or very low cost. More sophisticated playgrounds and management systems can range from affordable monthly subscriptions to significant enterprise investments. You need to weigh the cost against the value you're getting. If a tool costs you $50 a month but saves you 5 hours of work per month, and your time is worth more than $10 per hour, then it's a good investment. But if you're paying for features you never use, or if the tool doesn't actually improve your results, then it's not worth it regardless of the price. Many tools offer free trials or free tiers, so I'd encourage you to test before committing to paid plans. Ease of use and integration matter tremendously. A powerful tool that you never use because it's too complicated or doesn't fit into your workflow is worthless. Here's my practical recommendation for most people watching this course. Start without specialized tools and focus on mastering the fundamentals of prompting. Get comfortable with the techniques we've covered in the previous chapters. As you use AI more frequently, start keeping a simple document where you save prompts that work well for you. This could just be a text file or a note in your preferred note-taking app. Organize them by category or task type. Write brief notes to yourself about when each prompt works well and what settings you used. This manual approach will help you understand your own patterns and needs. After a few weeks or months of this, you'll have a much clearer sense of whether you need more sophisticated tools and what specific features would actually help you. Then you can explore the tools that match your specific needs, rather than just trying random tools because they exist. If you do decide to adopt tools, start simple and add complexity only as needed. Maybe begin with a free prompt library to discover effective patterns, then add a basic organizational tool. If you find yourself accumulating lots of saved prompts, then consider a playground if you're doing serious optimization work, and only invest in a full management system if you're working at a team or organizational scale where coordination and consistency really matter. There's no need to jump straight to the most advanced solution. Build up your toolkit gradually as your needs evolve. One final thought about prompt engineering tools. The landscape is changing rapidly. New tools are emerging constantly, and existing tools are adding features and improving. What I've described here are categories and principles for evaluation rather than specific product recommendations, because specific tools come and go or change significantly over time. The way to stay current is to remain engaged with the AI community, follow developments in the field, and periodically reassess whether your current approach and tools are still serving you well. But remember, tools are means to an end. The end is getting valuable, reliable results from AI. The techniques and principles you're learning in this course are more fundamental and lasting than any specific tool. Master the craft of prompting first, and then let tools amplify your effectiveness. That's the path to becoming truly proficient at working with AI in a sustainable way. Now, Chapter 6 is the most important, and it is somehow controversy to previous chapters. So, pay extreme attention. Modern prompt engineering. You will discover why prompt engineering is outdated. More valuable skills you should develop to get better results from AI models. We've spent most of this course teaching you about prompt engineering, all the techniques and frameworks and best practices for getting better results from AI. But now I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. Traditional prompt engineering, as a skill, is becoming less important, and in some ways, it's already outdated. Now, before you think I've wasted your time, let me explain what I really mean by this and why it actually makes what you've learned even more valuable. The world of AI is evolving incredibly fast, and the skills that will matter most in the future are not about knowing clever tricks or memorizing specific prompt patterns. They're about something much more fundamental and much more human. What I am about to share with you is a shift in perspective that will transform how you think about working with AI. Let me start by explaining why prompt engineering, as we traditionally think about it, is becoming outdated. When AI language models first became accessible to the public, they were quite rigid and difficult to work with. You had to phrase things in very specific ways to get good results. You needed to know special techniques and patterns. It was almost like learning a programming language where exact syntax mattered. People who studied prompt engineering and learned all the tricks had a significant advantage over those who did not. But here's what's happening now. The AI models themselves are getting dramatically better at understanding what you want, even when you express it imperfectly. Modern AI models are much better at inferring your intent, asking for clarification when they're unsure, handling ambiguous requests, adapting to different communication styles, and filling in gaps in your instructions. This means that many of the elaborate prompt engineering techniques that were necessary a year or two ago are now less critical. The AI can often figure out what you mean without you having to be so precise and formal in how you ask. Think about it like this. In the early days of talking to computers, you had to use very specific command line syntax. You might have to type something like copy/documents/file.txt to /backup, with exact punctuation and spacing. One mistake and it wouldn't work. But modern interfaces understand natural language. You can say, copy my document to the backup folder, or even just back up my document, and the system figures out what you mean. The same evolution is happening with AI. The elaborate prompt structures and patterns we teach are becoming less necessary because the AI is getting better at understanding natural, conversational requests. So, does this mean everything you've learned in this course is useless? Absolutely not. In fact, it's the opposite. What you've been learning are not just tricks for manipulating AI. You've been developing fundamental skills in clarity, communication, and critical thinking that will remain valuable regardless of how the technology evolves. Let me introduce you to what I believe are the truly valuable skills you should be developing to get better results from AI models, now and in the future. These skills are not about memorizing frameworks or patterns. They're about how you think and how you approach problems. The first and most important skill is what I call thinking clearly. This is the ability to clearly state your intent and accurately define a problem or goal. It sounds simple, but it's actually quite rare and incredibly powerful. Most people, when they approach a task or a problem, have only a vague sense of what they really want. They might say things like, "I need to improve our marketing," or "We need better customer engagement," or "I want to be more productive." These statements feel specific, but they're actually quite fuzzy. What does improve mean? Better in what way? More productive at what, and measured how? Clear thinking means taking that fuzzy idea and refining it into something precise and actionable. Let me give you a concrete example of the difference between fuzzy thinking and clear thinking. Imagine someone who thinks fuzzily might approach AI and say, "Help me with my marketing strategy." They get back a generic response about social media, email campaigns, and content creation. It's not particularly useful because the request was vague. Now imagine someone who thinks clearly. They would approach the same situation very differently. They might think to themselves, "What specifically am I trying to achieve with marketing?" They realize they want to increase sales of a particular product line to a specific customer segment. What's the actual problem I'm facing? They identify that their current customers don't know about this product line even though it would be valuable to them. What constraints do I have? They acknowledge they have a limited budget and a small team. Now, when they approach the AI, they say something like, "I need a marketing strategy to increase awareness of our premium service tier among our existing basic plan customers. Our goal is to convert 15% of them within 3 months. We have a budget of $5,000 and a team of 2 people. Our customers are small business owners who value time savings and efficiency. What targeted approaches should we consider?" See the difference? The second person will get dramatically more useful advice, not because they used some special prompt engineering trick, but because they thought clearly about what they actually needed. Clear thinking also allows you to look at the AI's output and identify what's missing or what's not quite right. When someone thinks fuzzily, they read the AI's response and have a vague sense that it's not quite what they wanted, but they can't articulate why. When someone thinks clearly, they can read the same response and say, "This is good, but it's missing specific tactics for reaching small business owners." Or, "This assumes I have a larger budget than I actually have." Or, "This does not account for the fact that my product is seasonal." They can then go back to the AI with a specific follow-up question that addresses exactly what was missing. This iterative refinement is not about knowing fancy prompting techniques. It's about having clear enough thinking to identify gaps and articulate them. The AI is incredibly powerful, but it still needs clear input to give you clear output. As AI gets better, the constraint is less about how you phrase things and more about how clearly you've thought through what you actually need. The second critical skill is asking better questions. This is related to clear thinking, but it's distinct. Asking better questions means moving beyond surface-level inquiries to questions that get at the heart of what you really need to know. Most people ask simple, direct questions and accept simple, direct answers. But insightful questions lead to insights, not just information. Let me illustrate what I mean. A simple question is, what are the top marketing trends this year? That will get you a list of trends, but so what? A better question is, Which of the current marketing trends are most relevant for a B2B software company with a long sales cycle, and why? That's more targeted and will give you something more actionable. But an even better question might be, our competitors are all investing heavily in video content marketing, but our team has no video production experience. Should we follow that trend, find an alternative way to achieve the same goals, or focus our efforts on different opportunities entirely? What framework should we use to make this decision? This question shows sophisticated thinking. It acknowledges context, expresses a real dilemma, and asks not just for an answer, but for a way to think about the problem. When you ask better questions, you get better answers. The AI can provide incredibly nuanced, thoughtful responses when the question itself is nuanced and thoughtful, but it can only give generic responses to generic questions. Developing the skill of asking better questions is not about AI at all. It's a life skill that makes you better at learning, problem-solving, and decision-making in every context. It just happens to be especially powerful when working with AI because AI is essentially a question-answering system. The quality of what you get out is largely determined by the quality of what you put in. Better questions come from curiosity, from thinking deeply about your situation, from challenging assumptions, and from being willing to ask why multiple times until you get to the root of what you really need to understand. Here's how to develop this skill. When you have a question for the AI, pause before asking it and ask yourself a few things. What am I really trying to learn or accomplish with this question? Am I asking for information I could find on my own? Or am I asking for analysis, synthesis, or insight? What context or constraints should I include to make this question more relevant to my specific situation? What assumptions am I making in how I'm framing this question? Could I be asking something more fundamental or more useful? This self-reflection before you even talk to the AI is where the real skill development happens. Over time, you'll naturally start asking richer, more insightful questions that lead to genuinely useful responses. The third skill, which might seem unusual in a course about AI, is learning to imagine things in your business or your work. What I mean by this is the ability to envision possibilities that don't exist yet, to think creatively about solutions, and to see connections between different ideas. This is a fundamentally human skill that AI can support, but never replace. AI is excellent at providing information, analyzing data, following patterns, and even combining existing ideas in novel ways. But AI doesn't have genuine imagination in the way humans do. It doesn't wake up in the middle of the night with a flash of insight. It doesn't feel the frustration of a problem deeply enough to be driven to find a breakthrough solution. It doesn't have the intuition that comes from years of experience in a specific domain. That's all you. Your imagination is what allows you to look at everything the AI tells you and think, yes, but what if we did it this other way instead? Or, this is interesting, but it's not quite right for our culture. Or, these three ideas could be combined into something new. Let me give you an example of how imagination works in practice when using AI. Imagine you're trying to improve customer service in your company. You ask the AI for ideas, and it gives you a list of standard suggestions. Implement a chatbot, create an FAQ page, offer extended support hours, train staff better, use customer relationship management software, and so on. These are all reasonable, proven approaches. But here's where your imagination comes in. You know your specific customers and your specific business in a way the AI never could. Maybe you suddenly imagine what if instead of just answering customer questions, we created a community forum where customers help each other, and we reward the most helpful community members with early access to new features. That's not something the AI suggested directly, but the AI's suggestion sparked your imagination to think about community, engagement, and incentives in a new way. Or maybe you imagine combining the chatbot idea with a human touch by having the chatbot collect information and context before routing to a human, so that when customers do talk to a person, that person is already fully informed and can provide much more personalized help. That synthesis of automated efficiency and human connection might be exactly what your customers value. Imagination also helps you see what's missing or wrong in what the AI produces. When the AI generates content or ideas, you need imagination to evaluate whether it's actually good in your specific context. You need to imagine how your customers would react, how your team would implement it, what obstacles you might encounter, and whether this aligns with where you're trying to go as an organization. These acts of imagination are where your human judgment and intuition are irreplaceable. AI can inform your imagination by providing information, examples, and possibilities you might not have considered. But it's your imagination that does the creative synthesis, the contextual evaluation, and the breakthrough thinking. Now, let me tie all of this together and show you why these skills matter so much more than traditional prompt engineering. The future of working with AI is not about humans learning to talk like programmers or mastering elaborate techniques. It's about AI learning to work with humans as partners. The humans who will get the most value from AI are not those who know the most tricks. They're the ones who think clearly, ask insightful questions, and imagine possibilities. These are the people who can have a genuine dialogue with AI, where they're not just extracting information, but actually collaborating on problems. They can evaluate AI outputs critically rather than accepting them at face value. They can guide the AI toward what's truly useful rather than just getting technically correct but contextually irrelevant responses. Here's what this means practically. Stop worrying so much about whether you're using the perfect prompt structure or the right keywords. Instead, invest your energy in developing these deeper skills. When you're about to use AI for something, take an extra minute to think clearly about what you're really trying to achieve. Challenge yourself to ask a more insightful question than your first instinct. Use the AI's responses as a springboard for your own imagination rather than as final answers. These practices will serve you far better than memorizing 50 different prompting patterns. The techniques we've covered in this course about structure, context, examples, iteration, and so on are valuable as frameworks for organizing your thinking. They help you think more clearly and communicate more precisely, but they're means to an end, not ends in themselves. The end is effective collaboration with AI to accomplish meaningful work. Let me address a question you might be having. If prompt engineering is becoming outdated, why did we spend so much time teaching it in this course? The answer is that learning the structured approach to prompting teaches you these deeper skills. When you learn to provide context, you're learning to think about what information is relevant. When you learn to give examples, you're learning to communicate your vision clearly. When you learn to iterate, you're learning to evaluate critically and refine thoughtfully. The prompt engineering frameworks are like training wheels. They're useful while you're learning. But the real goal is to develop the underlying skills so that eventually you don't need to consciously think about the framework anymore. It becomes natural. As AI continues to evolve, it will get even better at understanding casual, conversational requests. You'll be able to have natural back-and-forth dialogues where the AI asks you clarifying questions and you refine your thinking together. The technical aspects of prompting will matter less and less. But the quality of your thinking, the insightfulness of your questions, and the creativity of your imagination will matter more and more. These are the skills that will differentiate people who use AI as a fancy search engine from people who use it as a genuine thinking partner and force multiplier for their work. These are also skills that make you more valuable as a human professional, regardless of AI. In a world where AI can handle many routine tasks, the humans who thrive are those who can think clearly about complex problems, ask the kinds of questions that lead to real insight, and imagine new possibilities that don't exist yet. So, as you finish this course and go forward to work with AI, I want you to remember this. Yes, use the prompting techniques we've taught you. They're useful, and they'll improve your results. But don't stop there. Keep developing as a thinker. Keep challenging yourself to ask better questions. Keep exercising your imagination. Keep reflecting on what you really need versus what you initially thought you wanted. These are the practices that will make you exceptional at working with AI, not just competent. This is also a more empowering way to think about your relationship with AI. You're not a technician who has to learn the right commands to make a machine work. You're a human with unique insight, context, and creativity, and you're learning to collaborate with a powerful tool that can amplify your capabilities. That collaboration is most effective when you bring your best human qualities to it: clear thinking, insightful questioning, and imaginative vision. That's the future of working with AI, and these are the skills that will remain valuable no matter how much the technology continues to evolve. We've covered a lot of ground together in this course. If you have any question about the contents of this course or AI in general, just write it down in the comments section, and usually it will be replied within 24 hours. And if you got something from this, please like and subscribe for future AI contents and tutorials. I want to take a few moments to bring everything together and send you off with confidence. When we started, we talked about what generative AI really is and why it matters. You learned that these large language models are sophisticated prediction systems, and that your ability to interact with them effectively depends on how well you communicate your needs. We explored the 5-step prompting framework of task, context, references, evaluate, and iterate. We examined model settings like temperature and output length so you understand how to control AI responses. We dove into practical applications for content creation and information management. We covered best practices like structuring prompts with role, context, instruction, and constraints, and using template patterns for consistency. We looked at prompt engineering tools and when they might be valuable. And finally, we talked about why traditional prompt engineering is becoming less important, while deeper skills like clear thinking, asking better questions, and imagination are becoming more critical. So, what should you take away from all of this? First, understand that working effectively with AI is a skill that improves with practice. You're not going to be perfect at it immediately, and that's completely normal. Be patient with yourself and embrace the learning process. Second, remember that the techniques and frameworks we've taught you are tools to help you think more clearly and communicate more effectively. Don't get so caught up in following a perfect structure that you lose sight of what you're actually trying to accomplish. If a simple, straightforward prompt gets you exactly what you need, that's perfect. Third, start applying what you've learned right away. Pick one simple task that you do regularly at work and start using AI to help with that task. Practice on real work that matters to you. As you get comfortable with one application, add another. Build your skills gradually through actual use rather than just theoretical knowledge. Fourth, remember that AI is a tool to amplify your capabilities, not to replace your thinking. You are always in the driver's seat. The AI provides information and generates content, but you're the one who evaluates whether it's good and applies your judgment. Never outsource your critical thinking to AI. Fifth, keep learning and adapting because this field is evolving rapidly. The AI tools available today will be different from the tools available next year. Stay curious, experiment with new features, and be willing to adjust your approach as the technology evolves. What remains constant are the fundamental principles of clear communication, critical thinking, and creative problem-solving. Let me simplify everything for you. Here's what really matters. Be clear about what you want. Give enough context so the AI understands your situation. Look critically at what you get back and identify what needs improvement. Refine and try again until you get something useful. That's it. Everything else we've covered is elaboration on those basic principles. Start there, and as you get more comfortable, you can add more sophisticated techniques. I also want to encourage you to share what you learn with others. As you discover techniques that save you time or insights about how to use AI effectively, share that knowledge with your colleagues and team. Helping others doesn't diminish your own expertise. In fact, teaching others is one of the best ways to deepen your own understanding. The real power of AI is not in the technology itself, but in what humans do with it. AI is impressive, But what really matters is your vision for what you want to accomplish, your judgment about what's valuable, and your skill in using AI as one tool among many to bring your ideas to life. Don't be intimidated by the technology. You just need to become skilled at collaborating with it in service of your goals. Thank you for investing your time in learning with me. I'm genuinely excited about what you'll accomplish with these new skills. The future of work is going to be shaped by people who can effectively collaborate with AI, and you're now equipped to be one of those people. Go out there and make the most of it. Good luck and enjoy the journey ahead.